Hey, welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. Hopefully, you're having a great week. It is Thursday again. Man, these weeks fly by. But I think that's a good thing because it's getting us closer to spring. And for us Northerners, get us out on the golf course soon. So, before we get into today's episode, just want to let you know it is brought to you by Titleist and the new Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls. We all aspire to outperform the player we were yesterday. It takes practice, commitment, and trusting your golf ball will perform the way you need it to on every type of shot. The Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X offer advanced technology and performance that rewards your best swings and helps you shoot lower scores. Both models are exceptionally long, deliver consistent flight, and feature unrivaled control. The Pro V1 is the best combination of distance, spin, and feel in the game and delivers a more penetrating ball flight, where the Pro V1X flies a little bit higher, spins more in the short game while still giving you low spin on longer shots to maximize your distance. Find out more about Pro V1 and Pro V1X, including which is the choice for your game, at Titleist.com. So, yeah, welcome back. It is another Thursday. It's wild to think that it's already Thursday. I feel like I've got nothing done this week, even though I've been working a lot. And I feel like I've got nothing done. And here we are. It's already Thursday, which is just crazy. So it's been a good week, been a good weekend. This is finally, I'm not traveling. So, I'm back home again, which is always nice. And it's nice to wake up in your own bed and all that and see your family. So it's been good. A lot going on. I know the Arnold Palmer's going on right now. Some really cool stuff. Interesting enough, seeing the new dot head, which I know this is probably not the first dot head that has been out in the wild on tour, but Rory at the 2025 Arnold Palmer Invitational has the new dot head from TaylorMade, the QI35 dot. So if you don't remember the dot head from last year's dot head was QI10 dot, and what it does is at like the 9 degree or 10.5, whatever the loft is, had a little dot where you think the degree symbol goes. Well, in retail, that dot isn't there. So it is there on this, and now with the QI35, we now see the dot head in Rory's bag. And the interesting enough is last year, we know the dot head was lower spin and lower launching than a retail head. Looked the same, all that. Just had the dot and just launched a little bit lower, spun a little bit less. This one, for me, the QI35 launches and spins lower anyway. I think it's a much better driver. I think it's been vastly improved over the previous year. But we're seeing now the dot, which it'll be interesting to know, is it lower launching and lower spinning than the retail head? Because I feel like the LS head kind of came up a little bit and the QI35 came down, and I think there's a little less of a distance gap between those in terms of launch and spin. But he's got one in the bag, and it looks very similar to retail. It's got the dot. Now, the one big thing about it was when we got the photos, in-hand photos from the Arnold Palmer, it looks like the LS head. So the new Max head, or the new QI35 head, is shaped like the Max. It's got the bigger profile. It's a little bit more rounded. There's not that tapered slope from hosel through the heel to the back of the club like there is with the LS. So the LS stays kind of true, traditional, TaylorMade shape. The dot head, or the standard head, then moves to the bigger, more Max look, and then when you sit on the Max and the regular QI35, they look pretty similar. And the reason they did that was TaylorMade said they wanted to make the standard QI35 more forgiving, and the only way to do that was to match the shape and push more weight out to the perimeter. So that's why it looks like that. But the dot head that Rory has definitely has more of an LS shape to it. It's more of that classic TaylorMade shape. So it probably loses a little bit of forgiveness in that sense. Not that he really cares that much about that. It's still a probably pretty darn stable head, but interesting enough, he didn't go into the LS head, even though it's more playable, stayed with this, but definitely a little unique look. So interesting to see what the performance is going to be out of that. Is it lower spin? Is it the same performance, just a cosmetic thing? But the dot heads are back out on tour, which is pretty interesting. So cool to see that. The other part of Rory's bag, or with that driver, got the new Ventus Black in there. So he's got the 2024 Black 6X in that driver instead of the OG one. Was it 2018-19? But he's got the new one in there. And honestly, I've hit both of them. Performance is pretty close. I feel like the new Ventus, the 2024 model, it might produce just a little bit more ball speed. I noticed a mile an hour with the blue. Didn't notice near as much with the black. I feel like it was definitely closer to OG Black. But definitely kind of a little bit of a stouter profile, but very tight, very controlled, very stable, but he's playing the new 2024 one in driver, which is pretty cool. The dot heads, I'm excited to hear more about them because I know it's just a matter of time before more of them get out on tour, and then some people get some in their hands, and we get some kind of reviews in a sense, or some ideas of what they do. But I like the look a lot. I like the LS look. I like the old traditional TaylorMade look. So for me, I'm a big fan of the dot head and the way it looks in the QI35. I wish they could have kept it at retail as well, but I totally get why they didn't. The QI35 is meant for, golfers of all kind of, ranges in terms of handicap and skill, and making something that's definitely more forgiving is definitely better for retail. So totally get it. There also, it says DEC December 2nd on the bottom. So it looks like this head was, I don't know if it was built or given to him or whatever on December 2nd, but we're now into March. So he's got it, and it looks like it's finally going into play. But interesting news in the driver. And then when we get into fairway woods, also interesting that he has bonded 3 and 5 woods, QI35 bonded 3 and 5 woods. So we don't get, we were all excited this year. We got adjustable fairways from TaylorMade. So the Tour, the standard QI35, and the QI35 Max, we got the loft sleeve on all of them, which was awesome. You can, adjust them a little bit, add a little loft, take a little off, change the face angle a little, whatever you needed to do, change the lie, all those options there. And Rory shows up with QI35 bonded hosels. So from the look, they look very QI10. And the QI10 standard core model was an absolute killer fairway. Played by a ton of guys on tour. Know a bunch of amateurs who played it. I have one that I really liked. I was shocked at how good it was. So what my assumption, and again, I know nothing other than just photos, is that they basically took the QI10 from last year and just made the QI35 the same. Like this tour one, this prototype. And I'm going to jump and say we're going to see a bunch of these in bags of guys who play QI10. We're going to see a bunch of these in their bags. And I think a lot of guys are going to move to it because they basically are just taking QI10, taking all the good things and everything it did, and just making it a QI35 version. So putting the new carbon crown on top and putting all the shaping, all that. The sole looks like a QI35, but again, pretty interesting to see a 3 and 5 wood bonded from him on there, but I understand why. Again, Fujikura, but interesting, playing the 2024 Fujikura Ventus Black in the driver. In the 3 and 5 wood, he's playing the original Ventus Black in 8X in the 3 wood, 9X in the 5 wood, which kind of interesting. Didn't go 2024 the whole way through, but a couple interesting keys that I've noticed. But the dot head for driver is back. So when we start doing what's in the bag videos and some of these guys from TaylorMade start winning, I guarantee you we're going to be talking about dot heads. So again, I'm excited to see a little bit more about these and what they do differently, or if it just is cosmetic. But the 3 wood, 5 wood, definitely different. And again, I think this is just basically making a QI35 that looks, performs, and everything like the QI10 did, because the QI10 was really good. And I think the QI10 is going to be one of those ones, kind of like Stealth 2, that just hung around for a while because it was a really good fairway wood. I think QI10 is the same way. I think those on sale are a phenomenal value. If you find one that's a little less expensive that you can get your hands on, it's a great fairway wood. And I think these are just meant to kind of mimic that. And it's making it easier transition for guys like Rory and Scotty and whatever to jump over to the new product. Because, I know a lot of people have been talking about, hey, the older drivers have been winning tournaments and whatever. And really, like, there's just not a lot of time in this wraparound season type stuff where guys get to really, like, pull back, test new stuff, put new stuff in the bag. It just, they don't have the time. So they're going, as soon as 2024 ended, 25 started, it was like a week or two. I mean, it's like not that long. So, but really interested to see this stuff on tour. If you go to golfthebrex.com, jump into the forums, and under the Arnold Palmer, there's a link for Rory's stuff there. But interesting enough, they put the same lines on the top of that dot head. Even though it's shaped like an LS, they put the lines on there that, around the perimeter that they have on the standard QI35, like they're on here. So interesting that I don't know if maybe Rory liked them or what, but I feel like if they didn't, like Rory didn't like them, they would have removed them, but they're still on there. So interesting. I don't know if they're trying to make it still seem like it's a QI35 or if, somebody still liked them on there or what, but definitely something interesting to follow and to see kind of more on this as the year goes on. But pretty cool. Where the dot head is back. We're tour prototypes. They're starting back up. I know we've seen a bunch of Elytes. and now we get the TaylorMade version. So pretty cool to see those, and we'll see who else puts them in the bag. But I just wanted to, and it's just that junkie thing. It was interesting to see, and I know a lot of you are interested in it as well. So, like I said, go to Golf WRX forums. You can see the photos of them, the fairways, and the driver. We got in hands of all of them, which is pretty cool. So go check those out when you get a chance. But we're jumping today. A lot of people have been asking about this club, and interesting enough, on Instagram today. If you want to follow me on Instagram at Club Junkie Pod, had somebody asked me about this. Said, "Hey, when are you doing your podcast on Elyte Titanium Fairway?" And I said, "Funny that you mentioned that. I was taking some notes, and we're recording tonight, and we're putting it out tomorrow." So I'm recording this on Wednesday evening, of course, as I always do. And yes, so Thursday today is going to be Elyte Titanium. That is going to be the day today. So this is interesting because there's a bunch of titanium fairway woods out there this year. There's been a few out last year, whatever. This is the first one from Callaway in a while, and it seems a lot of people super interested in this head. So it seems like there's more interest in this than the Ping G440 LST. More people asking about it than the Cobra DS Adapt LS. And even the TaylorMade QI35 Tour. So more people asking about this head, and I think it's because Callaway just hasn't done a titanium head in a while. But a very cool look to it. I've been hitting it a good amount. Excuse me, and I do have to say I'm pretty impressed by it. It's really really good. This definitely has a chance to go in the bag for sure. So we'll get into some numbers in a minute, but we'll talk a little bit about it. It is, the titanium head. So titanium face, titanium body, and then the thermoform composite crown, which, of course, you guys probably already knew. You can go online and see that. But a lot of tech into this thing. It has basically all the tech that all the usual fairway woods have, but it's all done in titanium. And the big thing with titanium, and actually it's a little bit of a challenge talking to some of the engineers and stuff, is that when you do titanium heads, you're actually removing so much weight due to the titanium compared to steel that you really sometimes almost struggle to put it back in the places you needed to put it and not make things not perform the way you want it. So when you do titanium heads, you think like, oh yeah, it's just creating a ton of ball speed, the face is hot, boom. It's a lot more than that goes into the engineering of it. So these are usually not easy to build, or from what I've understood from the engineers I've talked to across a couple different OEMs, these are not the simplest builds compared to doing their stainless steel brothers. But overall, the size is pretty large. I think I compare it size-wise to the Elyte X. It's pretty large there. In terms of size, internally, of course, it has that tungsten speed wave, which is 70 grams of weight that's pushed forward to kind of lower some, increase ball speed, lower spin, all that. The top, I think, is awesome. It's got the matte finish with the thermoform carbon crown. I think it blends really well. I think the shape overall looks really good. Again, I think it looks a lot like an Elyte X. The one big thing with this that I really love, and some players might not, because depending on your ball flight tendencies, mine sits like 2 degrees open. When it's set in the net neutral standard setting on the hosel, you set it down and it sits like 2 degrees open, which I love. I'm a guy who tends to draw the ball when I miss, where I draw just naturally, and having that face open just gives me a good feeling, gives me a little confidence, and overall, I like the look of this thing a lot. So AI Smart Face as well. So they got that tech where they have the AI face, which helps with mishits all over the face. And, they especially kind of looked at ball speed low on the face to get that up because, looking at data, most players, when they don't hit it center on a 3-wood or a fairway wood in general, they're hitting it low on the face. And so making that kind of hotter as well. But 2 movable weights on the bottom, 1 front, 1 back. So you can kind of dial this thing in. I am always a guy who keeps pretty much the heavy weight in the back. So 10 grams in the back and 6 grams in front is the head that I have. And then you can swap those, move the heavier weight forward, take a little bit more spin off, make this thing a real absolute bomber. But I want the extra launch. I want the height. I want to hit it high. And this thing kind of does that. But this thing's meant to be ultra forgiving, tons of perimeter weighting. So out of the line, they say it basically is going to be maybe slightly less forgiving than Elyte X, but it's going to launch high. It's going to produce a ton of ball speed, and it's overall going to look really, really good. So I'm a big fan of it so far. I've hit it a little bit, but the looks, I like it a ton. Like I set it down, it sits open. I like the rounded shape of it. It's very Callaway-esque. With the face, it's kind of the triple diamond face with the full scoring lines on it. And I actually like that. I think it frames the ball really well. I feel like I visually think it takes away a little bit of the loft. So just overall, just a cleaner, more compact look. But really, really solid look. The back, they lose all the green, going all just silver, black, and kind of charcoal color. So no real green on the bottom of it as well. But a really good package, really good look. I like what they did with that. Sound is really good. It's actually more muted than I thought. I thought, with titanium, you kind of get this high-pitched ting to it that is just a little different than stainless steel. It's maybe a touch lower on the tone scale, but it's still a little bit loud. It's got a little ring to it, and it goes, and it's got a good feel. Titanium faces usually do, where you can really feel them kind of like compress. This thing has all that. It's got that titanium kind of sound to it, but it's not as loud as I thought. And again, hitting most, all indoors lately. We're getting warmer. I'm going to be outside maybe soon, but hitting indoors, it usually amplifies everything. And honestly, really much more muted than I thought. I mean, people hitting other woods and stuff like that around the bays around me, far louder than this. I think it's very quiet, very muted, but still metallic, still very classic sounding. And I think Callaway did a nice job on the sound and feel of this thing. Face depth is pretty good. Again, kind of like Triple Diamond. I didn't put them right next to each other to measure them. I should do that. But the face is a little bit deeper than the standard Elyte and Elyte X. When you put them next to those, it's a little bit taller, and it's very similar to Triple Diamond. I just don't know if it's quite as tall. It looks from here maybe a hair shallower than Triple Diamond, but it's a little bigger. So it makes it in between and maybe right at the same Triple Diamond size, but a little deeper face than the traditional Elyte models that are out there in terms of Elyte and Elyte X and even the Max Fast. Those are going to be a little bit shallower for players who want that. But even with this deeper face, the thing is easy to get off the ground. The first couple shots I hit absolutely like just torched, which I mean for me are torched, but hit the ball really easy. It was really effortless. With this one here, I actually just had the hazardous charcoal 70 gram stiff in there. There was nothing fancy. I meant to change the shaft out before I left and actually didn't. So went to the range and just had the stock shaft in there. And I was a little bummed when I pulled it out, and I was like, oh man, I just left the stock shaft because I have the Artero Blue, EC1 Blue, which I wanted to hit in this. And then I also have Speeder Red X 70 gram that I've used since Original Paradigm, I think, or maybe even before that. But that's a shaft that I really liked, and I've hit a lot. And I've had a couple other shafts that I wanted to bring and hit in this, and I didn't. So I just had the hazardous charcoal, which was fine. Ended up hitting that. And honestly, the launch on this thing, way higher than I thought, way easier than I thought. It was easy to elevate. And this is just the standard 3-wood. They actually make a high launch 3-wood and a 5-wood in this. But I got the 3-wood, so I can kind of match it up against the other 3-woods. I almost kind of myself wish maybe I should have went high launch, but after hitting it, I don't know that I need to. This thing, it definitely gets the ball up in the air pretty darn easily, and I was hitting some really consistent shots in a really tight dispersion window. So it was pretty interesting because I've talked about on here a lot. 3-woods for me are a struggle. Like finding a good 3-wood when I do. Like I played XR16 for like 4 years, and then finally replaced it when I think it was like Maverick came out in 20 or something like that, or maybe it was just after. And then it was just the constant rotation. Like I haven't really found one. GT2 has been really good for me at the end of last year, but I've been just kind of bouncing around from 3-wood to 3-wood. So last year was kind of a battle between GT2 and QI10. Those are the two that I was kind of hitting the most. And now I think I'm going to be throwing this thing in here. So it's going to definitely get some different shaft tries and stuff like that. I have a few 70 grammars laying around here that I know at least a couple maybe going into this head. But anyway, getting it out on the TrackMan range, hitting balls, really shocked at how easy this thing was to hit, how effortless it was. And it produced ball speed really, really well and really, really easily. And it kind of produced it across the whole face. And of course the dead center was the fastest, but even when you missed it out there, my smash factor numbers were so similar. I mean, I had a 151 on one of them that just was absolutely nuked. And then everything else was, the lowest one was 144, and everything else was pretty much closer to the high 1.4s, so 1.48s, 1.47, stuff like that. But yeah, I had a 151 with this as well. That was the highest. And like I said, the lowest was, I think, 144 was it. But the thing is, I never hit like just low, whatever shot, like everything got up in the air, everything. Now the peak height wasn't insanely high or anything like that, but still got it up in the air, hit it really, really solid. And it was definitely probably the most consistent 3-wood I've hit off the deck in a long time. So shot for shot, it worked really well. Through the numbers, we'll start with carry number. Carry was 227.3, which, interesting enough, is 1 yard behind the PXG mini driver, the secret weapon that I was hitting off the tee. So off the turf, this thing's about 4 yards longer than the PXG mini driver that I was really impressed with the other week. This is a little bit longer than that in terms of carry, which I'm super excited about. I didn't do tee and turf with this. I just didn't think about it when I was there hitting, so I don't have separate numbers. I got to go back and then do tee numbers as well. But I hit everything off the deck with this, and that was it. I should have thought about it, put the tee on, and had both, and I didn't. And I will definitely go back and do that. Yeah, 227.3, which I think I averaged 228.8 with the PXG. So off the deck, hitting a 227, and then having a little roll up after that, which for me is a good 3-wood. If I can hit almost 230 off the deck, I'm able to do whatever I want. And then off the tee, if it can go a few yards longer, and I can carry a 230 and roll out to the 240-ish area type stuff. I think it's going to work really well. Gapping wise, I think that will actually be a little closer to driver than maybe I'm used to, but I don't think it's going to put me into the trouble that sometimes you can get into when you hit 3-wood too far, mini driver too far, whatever. So spin wise, it came in at on average 3,046 RPM. Again, that was kind of like a -2 degree attack angle through pretty much everything. Between 2.5 was pretty much my number. But down on the ball, only 3,000 RPM spin, and that's with the heavyweight back. Again, didn't notice anything that was like crazy high spin numbers. Everything kind of stayed between. There wasn't much south of 3,000. There was a couple 2,800 stuff like that, but most of was in that right around 3,000, right at that average. There was a couple that went a little right that kind of had a little bit more spin, few hundred RPM, nothing crazy. Spin was pretty tight between all shots, and there was a few that drew, a few that faded, a few that went right down the middle. And I do have to say, tightness, dispersion wise, tighter than the secret weapon off the tee. Like the oval was definitely thinner, or not thinner, narrower out on the range. So really consistent there. Ball speed, I averaged 142.1. And again, I saw a 151 smash factor. So I saw 144s, 145. Saw a couple a little bit lower that I missed, but really, I mean, I don't think I saw anything under 139. Everything else was above that. So 142.1 was my average ball speed with this, which I will say my average ball speed with the PXG Secret Weapon, 141.8. So almost identical. Off the tee was that. Off the deck, I was like 139. Off the tee, I was 141.8. So this one here, almost the same ball speed off the deck as off the tee with the PXG. So this thing does move the ball and it gets going. And if you need a little kind of firepower at the top end of the bag, I can see where this fits in. Now, then the launch comes in off the deck at 12.6, which was pretty much almost identical to the PXG off the turf. And that's a 13.5 degree head, and this is a 15 degree head. So 12.6, a little bit lower than that. But if you kind of, go, I guess, loft to loft. But I was getting the ball up in the air just fine. When you look down range, everything hit, carried, had a little bit of roll. But it wasn't anything that was just screaming out there that didn't have control. There was a lot of consistency in terms of the distance and how far things rolled out. So 12.6 off the deck was a launch angle, excuse me, with an apex of 85 feet. So 85 feet was higher than the PXG off the deck, not quite as high as PXG off the tee, but still 85 feet in the air off the deck was my average. Didn't see too much fluctuation there. Like even like draws and fades, they pretty much stayed. I mean, there was always a little rise to the fade, it always has. But it wasn't as much as you'd think. And like looking at a shot that just, rises up and towers, it stays pretty penetrating, pretty flat, goes out there, and maybe it got to like, 90, 95. And then the draw maybe got down to 80, just low 80s. But everything stayed around that kind of like that mark. There wasn't anything crazy high, wasn't anything crazy low. And the thing I like about not being crazy low is that usually that miss is like a hard lefter that just runs forever and it runs out of bounds. And this one here, I didn't see a whole lot of that. It all, like when there were draws, yes, it came out a little flatter, a little lower, but they kind of stayed in play, and they didn't really get outside that fairway area that TrackMan has. So then we move on. Smash factor, I averaged 148, which again is better than the PXG T or not T, but average 148 on this thing. And again, like the ball speed number just didn't change a whole lot from 139 to maybe 145. There just wasn't a ton of difference between there, and everything was pretty much in the 140 mile an hour or more, which for 3-wood is my game. I don't have the crazy speed. Not that I ever had crazy speed, but I don't have the crazy speed or anything like that. So I'm more of an average, guy who's swinging this thing in basically the high 90s for a 3-wood. My average clubhead speed was 97 with this thing. Getting 230 out of it. If I can get it up a little higher, I'm going to see, because it says 2 degrees open. If I can go up a little higher and it still looks square to me, it goes up to 16, I think this thing could be an absolute killer. Go up a little bit higher, get a little more height, a little more carry, and it could really, really be a good fairway. So those there, kind of the numbers, 148 smash, and that number was, again, extremely consistent between 144 and 151, which, of course, 151 is not something you're going to see a lot, but that was kind of the range there, and it was all around that 145 to 8 area. Everything was kind of in that zone, with a few dropping off or going a little higher, but not much. So number-wise, really, really good-looking 3-wood for me. When I'm hitting the balls, the big thing I noticed with this, not a lot of curvature on the ball. Like when I hit it right, it went right, and it had maybe a little fade, but it was really, the amount of curvature on the ball was so reduced compared to a lot of the 3-woods. They just went straighter right, straighter left. The ball just didn't have a ton of movement to it, which was kind of nice. And I think, being a titanium frame, having a really high MOI, being really forgiving, it definitely plays into that, because I did notice that this was probably one of the straightest 3-woods I've hit. Now, I still have a lot of work to do with some other 3-woods out there. But for 3-woods, this thing here has been extremely straight, extremely stable, and extremely consistent. And usually, for me, I'd find like a 3-wood like this that you could nuke it and go a mile, but the consistency was all over the place. Like you'd miss it, it'd kind of drop off, or you'd hit that super hot one and it'd just go forever. This here has been very consistent, very repeatable, and honestly, the biggest thing is that I've been kind of comfortable with it right out of the gate. So first rain session, first balls hit, I felt really good with it. And as I've taken it out, I've felt really good with it. So that part is kind of the interesting thing. I'm hoping that there's a little magic, and, hoping to find one of those 3-woods that just doesn't leave my bag for a few years. I think this thing definitely has a chance. Like I need to hit it off the tee. Excuse me. I need to go out and play with it on the course to see where it really goes. But overall, I think this thing has been really, really solid, and it's been a really good 3-wood. So I've been super impressed with it. I think it's it's definitely not a cheap option. Let's say that. I think it's a great 3-wood. It's $450. That's not cheap. I will fully get behind that. But I think this one here does a lot of things that I think the standard Elytes might not do. And I think if you're looking for that added ball speed, that added forgiveness, like you're looking for just a little bit more that you need to kind of like either fit that gap, or you have certain shots at your home course that you just need to kind of hit, hitting driver maybe just too much, or maybe it's just not accurate enough, or not consistent enough on certain holes, but you still need to get it down there. This thing could be an answer for you, because the nice thing about this compared to, say, the PXG Secret Weapon, which I like the Secret Weapon a lot, I'm kind of thinking about how that would fit in my bag. This one here, I know I can hit off the deck, because that's all I've done with it so far. So just teeing it up and hitting it, I should have no problem hitting it off the tee. And it's just going to be a really solid. So I think there's more versatility here for me than in a mini driver. So, and this here, I mean, again, off the deck, that's not going to happen that often. Majority, like 85% of this thing's life is going to be off the tee. But there are a few par fives that you run into over the, throughout the year that, hey, the green light's there. There's not a ton of trouble. There's no water or anything like that. Like just hit one up there, run it onto the green, and you're good. I do run into those. And like I look at Bella Vista, which, number 3 at Bella Vista, where I play a lot of my golf. That par 3, if you hit a good drive, you're going to be down in the valley. For me, at least, a really monster hitter can get it on top of the hill. But there's a little kind of ravine down there, and that's where every ball pretty much ends up. Whether you bomb it and it basically lands in the ravine, or you hit a poor one and it runs down, you're kind of down there. So you've got like a partially blind shot, but you're up a hill, and there's really nothing there. There's 2 bunkers on the side of the green, and they're there, and that's fine. But there's nothing else. There's no water or anything like that. So when you just hit a solid shot up there, and it's reasonably straight, you're probably either greenside bunker or you're, right on the fringe or you're on the green. Like it's not, there's nothing really, that's a problem up there. So I've actually had, probably more eagle looks on that hole than any other par five I've played. But this one here, I think, that's going to be a shot that with the PXG, I'm probably going to think about just a little bit more because of that taller face and all that. With this here, I mean, it's traditional 3-wood, just, let it go and you can get it up there and onto the green. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this, again, it's going to give me what the PXG gives me in terms of speed and all that, low spin. But it's not going to be crazy, crazy hot, not, a tall face where I can't hit it off the deck. So really interesting there, but I like this thing a lot. So I'm going to hit the other Elytes as well, kind of compare them. But this one I wanted to get out specifically because people had been asking about it. And yeah, overall, I'm really impressed with it. I'm really happy with it. I like it a lot. Right now, I would say I haven't got on course, so I'll still say GT2 is probably still my starter. But this is in a very close second place, and it'll all kind of depend on hitting it off the tee or hitting it on the course. Because on the course is where it really matters. I mean, when you have one ball, one shot, that's it. You can't just reload and hit another one. That's where it's really going to matter. So, the new Elyte Titanium from Callaway. I think they did a great job with this thing. I'm super excited to hit this some more. But overall, really good package, really good looks, sits open, has ball speed, has forgiveness, and it's pretty low spin. So I'm a big fan. I like it. I'm excited to hit it some more, and we'll see where it goes. But we're trying to whittle down some stuff for the bag, and then maybe we'll do a little shootout between titaniums. Do a little titanium from Cobra, from Ping, from Callaway, TaylorMade. See what happens. See which one works out the best. But yeah, that is the Elyte Titanium. If you go to CallawayGolf.com, you can check out all the details on the Elyte. Again, you can get 3-wood, high launch 3-wood, or a 5-wood. They make all three with this thing. And I could see, being a little bit bigger. The head size on this one is, what is it? It's a little bit, it's not as big as I thought. I thought it was going to be much big. It's 170 cc's, both the 3 and the high launch 3. And the 5 was 149 cc's. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of big. And then I looked at, I think it was the standard Elyte, and it's like the same size, or very, very close. Yeah, it's the 3-wood in the Elyte is 169 cc's. So I mean, it's right there. The 5-wood's 144. So the 5-wood's 5 cc's bigger in the titanium, and the 3-wood and 3 high launch are 1 cc bigger. So basically the same. Which is pretty cool. So they're not getting super massive, super huge. We're keeping it in a somewhat compact size, which is pretty awesome. So that is the Elyte Titanium Fairway Wood from Callaway. Big fan of it over here, and excited to hit it some more along with the rest of the Elyte fairways and the rest of the other titanium fairways. So that's it. That's what I've got for you today in terms of the show. Hopefully, you guys are going to have a good week. Enjoy it. Hopefully, your weekends are starting to get warmer. I think tomorrow's will do like 60, and then it's supposed to get cool again. But I think we're kind of starting. We're away from snow. Mother Nature's still going to dump some snow on us in partially in March. But yeah. So I just got an email from my league as well. So we'll start up some league. What's in the bags? I know everybody loves those. Switching stuff up every week, even when I play poorly or well. So we'll get into it. But spring's getting here. I'm excited. And that's the show for today. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Play some golf. Be safe. And if you want to subscribe, follow this podcast wherever you listen, I would greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry you got to look at my ugly face. But if you could subscribe, whatever, that'd be awesome. And then, if you want to follow me on Instagram at Club Junkie Pod. So have a good one. We'll talk next week. And I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do next week. We'll definitely do some, review some clubs. I just don't know what it is yet. So we'll talk to you next week.